It's just welcome everyone to the Daily Fix. I'm Keith Fleming, joined by my boy Kevin Tompkins.
You had to think about that one, didn't you?
Well, what I was thinking about was Joe Matt's just text. He needs the link, and I'm going, when I was dog cussing him for the last 5 minutes for being late, it's probably only fair to be like, well, I did forget to send him the link. So, my bad, Joe. Joe will be on with me and Kev in just a second. Kevin, you a little depressed? Week 15, we're getting near, as the Boys to Men famously said, the end of the road.
I don't know if I'm depressed. I think there's more parity than we've had in seasons past, so it makes the NFL a lot more fun. It makes, of course, these late seasons where we can't completely predict who's playing, who's not playing. We don't have that. We can't rule out completely that the Chiefs are sitting Patrick Mahomes or the Bills sitting Josh Allen or anything like that, which makes it great. So, that puts a lot of that, but I can't lie and say I'm not looking forward to 2025 a little bit. I know, I don't want to get too political here, but I did see that RFK Jr. is recommending to the FDA that they get rid of the polio vaccine. And in related news, Donald Trump is looking to reduce the price of running backs in the 2025 NFL draft as well. So whether those two things come to fruition, who knows?
Talk about making America great again. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Any type of discount we can get on Saquon Barkley. You guys can take. I'm not going to be drafting him, but any kind of discount we can get on Saquon Barkley after this season, I think is certainly a great thing for our fantasy football pocketbooks.
Joe, what do you think about that? That Trump's going to apparently, one of his first agendas is to make running backs affordable again.
How does that work?
Do we know anything at this point?
I had heard about the polio vaccine stuff. I have not heard about running backs being affordable.
Yeah, man, that was they stuffed that in the article. So
I was gonna say you could get that 18 to 49-year-old male and female demographic, to be fair, in the fantasy football space by doing that. Even though he's going, I just got reelected, so screw you guys. It's week 15, anyway. Guys. Yeah, let's talk some DFS. I guess that's probably what we're here to do. I want to apologize again. I did it on our Fantasy Six Pack show last night. I was so freaking off last week with my plays, and I don't know what was scarier, how off they were, or how confident I was in them, only to be found out you wrong. So again, my apologies, especially for all the Caleb and Will Levis that I talked up. Both of those worked out real well for your boy. But we're going to get back on the saddle again, because that is what we do. Be sure to follow all the amazing work at Fantasy and Frames. If you were watching the Waiver Wire show this week, you saw me take 2 pies in the face. Where else can you get that kind of content? My wife really seemed to enjoy that, which again, I'm not sure where I stand on that, but it's a lot of fun. We've got IDP shows, we've got Dynasty shows, we got Fantasy and Friends, they got hockey shows, for God's sake. So be sure to give that a follow on YouTube. Subscribe, I guess is the word, and then follow all the social media accounts. But let's start here, boys. What's your kind of overall thoughts, themes, whatever direction you want to go with week 15?
Looking over, obviously we're going to be talking about quarterbacks first. There's not much that jumps out to me, and even on this page of quarterbacks, there's only maybe 1 or 2 plays that I maybe even feel confident about. But other than that, like knowing what we know from like the injury stuff today, I think there's like one like screaming play that like dovetails into like 2 or 3 other plays that really for me is like just a screaming beacon of you need to play this weekend.
So you're saying it's a domino effect.
It is, unlike the pizza, by the way, not a sponsored sponsor of the Daily Sports. Not yet, at least, but call us.
We got bigger aspirations. Yeah. Where you at, Cracker Barrel? I had you again tonight. Come on.
But before we get, because they're not on this page, let's talk about that. And we'll dovetail into that. So, I mean, the top, I mean, Josh Allen, Buffalo, Detroit's the highest over-under game of the slate.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kev, did you see the offensive line advantage that the Lions have against the Bills? Joe went over this last night. It's one of the highest that I can ever remember per PFF. Joe went at 80%.
It was 80%. I mean, it's a top 5 run blocking O-line versus a bottom 5 run defense, according to their grading anyway. So, yeah. But
that sounds fun.
Yeah. The problem, of course, is figuring out, which Lions running back you take in that situation every week. But I mean, Josh, like you, I'm with you where I looked at the slate of quarterbacks and I think there's a lot of reasonable options. There's just not a lot that I got excited about. And I mean, Allen, obviously in that situation, I'll be surprised if Allen doesn't score, mid-20s in that game. But I just hate spending $8,500 on a quarterback. It just makes everything else so much harder.
Well, I mean, the reason I brought up the Lions thing is just, I know everybody's taking the over and everybody sees a ton of points, but
think the clock's going to be running?
I do. I kind of have a feeling that the Lions, they're like, I know for all the gusto and everything that people talk about, like that's a pretty well-coached team. And I could see them coming out and going, look, we're just going to try to smash Gibbs and Montgomery, keep Josh Allen, who's been doing his best Superman impersonation, off the field as much as possible. And, I think that's the easiest way to win. The guy that I keep coming back to, whether it's cash or MME, Joe Burrow, 7,300. I mean, his last 5 games, 18 passing touchdowns, 342 passing yards per game. He's averaging over 30 on DraftKings in that span. And it's one of those deals where you look at the Titans, right? Like they give up the least passing yards in the NFL. I know there's a lot of metrics that speak they're pretty good, but they play the AFC South. They faced Malik Willis and Tyler Huntley instead of Tua and Jordan Love on their schedule this year, who they were supposed to face. They faced 3 rookie QBs, and they've still been torched by good quarterbacks. Like Daniels, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen, 323, 2 touchdowns. Jared Goff, 15 attempts, 3 touchdowns. And the Bengals have kind of proven that even when they're boat racing somebody, they're not afraid to run up the score. They've had quite a few blowouts, and their defense is so bad, hell, they might not, be able to run away with it anyway.
Yeah.
I love Burrow. The issue is then into, am I okay with stacking him and Chase? Where, now you're talking about a very expensive pair, but at the same time, other than maybe Chase Brown, which Kevin talks about this all the time, where if you stack them together, that's going to, make your lineup unique. I don't really know. Like, do you trust stacking Higgins or any other guys with Burrow? Because I don't. It's like, screw it. If I'm going to stack Burrow with a pass catcher, you kind of have to do it with Chase with what he's doing right now.
I mean, Higgins is obviously the cheaper way to do it. Chase Brown is the most unique way to do it. I think even with the Bengals passing game being so condensed, there's no other, like not even like Gesicki. Those guys aren't options realistically.
Yeah, it's only if a receiver's out. Yeah.
Right, because we saw Gesicki, level up without Higgins, but we also see the Bengals play 4 tight ends every week and give them like at least 10 routes. like Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, and Cam Grandy are out there running routes too.
It's what happens when Eric All, the best tight end in football, gets injured and tears his ACL, So anyway, sorry, that was an inside joke, people. I was a big Eric All fan earlier this year. If you missed that, that was a waiver wire joke for our waiver wire peeps. So what QB, Joe, are you like, hey, this is my guy this week?
Again, it's hard for me to truly have a guy in this slate. If I'm going relatively high,
because Drew Lock's doubtful. I hope you know that, right, Joe? So you can't pick Drew Lock. I'm sorry, buddy.
I honestly didn't know that, but
that's probably not news that we're
affecting my life
either.
Even as
Dan Belichick taking up all the air in sports news. I can't even find out that Drew Lock's not starting. What a bastard!
He didn't want to be on the 30-0 score this week. But if I'm spending up, I'm leaning Jaden Daniels. I think the issue is, will he be able to? Will the Saints put up enough points? But to your point though about Tennessee, he just had a 28-point game against Tennessee in a game that ended 42-19, and that was
a half.
Right, and that's what we've seen with the Commanders. Often, it had been a little bit since we'd seen it, but I mean, this is a team that had, 9 straight scoring drives or whatever it was earlier in the season. So if he's on a roll, and it wouldn't surprise me if he is, the last time we saw him, he was. So, he could put up 25 in the first half, and then if we only get, 6 points in the second half, we're not too worried about it. So that would maybe be mine, because we know it's indoors. It's a defense that I trust him to beat. It's an offense that's functioning for the most part at a high level, but I'm probably going to be going down. And the more I think about it, maybe he'll burn me, because you and I talked about yesterday how we kind of just don't believe in him long term, really. But I kind of like Bo Nix against the Colts, where, if I'm being optimistic, I'm saying I think Steichen draws up a good game plan. The Colts are able to put up some points on a good Denver defense. And, again, Gus Bradley's not switching it up a lot on you. They're solid defense, but not one that's there to confuse you, and not one with a ferocious pass rush, which is always my biggest fear for Bo Nix, especially. So, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, can they carve up just
that a Valet stack
over and over and over again? I bet they can.
Is that what you're doing? Stacking them?
Yeah, I love Valet. MME, even cash games. Again, he's the guy who kills zone. Colts are going to run a ton of zone.
Give that stat about higher target rate than Cortland Sutton. That kind of blew my mind against zone. Like that's saying something.
And then Sutton also has been incredibly consistent. Yeah. Where he's gone double digits every game since New Orleans, where he had 0. And so that's week 8 onward, he has 3 20-point games, and his lowest score is 14.8. And that's actually his only one under 19 in the last 6 games. So, yeah, you could go Sutton. He's not too expensive at 6,600. You can go Valet if you want to save money and spend elsewhere, because you're not all in on this play. That's only 4,200 for, again, a guy who before last week, 3 straight double-digit games at low prices and loves to play zone. So that's unless I'm going, riskier, which we'll get to in a sec. Bo Nix is kind of my mid-tier play that I like.
Yeah, it's Sutton. Sutton has literally been Amon-Ra St. Brown the last 2 months.
God, it sounds insane, but it's so true.
It's nice that he gets a functional offense again, because it's early in his career, it's oh, this guy's a fucking gamer, and then you kind of forget.
He got hurt. He got the ACL week 1 of 2020, I think.
I think that was his second season, right? That sounds right.
Yeah, because he had that first season, then he was drafted in the 7th round that year. Because I remember I drafted a lot of Cortland Sutton that year.
It's ingrained.
It is. I mean, look, the young, sexy standard X wide 100%. Receiver that was, in vogue at the time.
You definitely have a type, Kev. On a dating site, we know your types.
Well, not anymore, though. I mean, trust me, you couldn't find a bigger T. Higgins guy 2020. Are you kidding me? You couldn't find a bigger T. Higgins. That's why I got the jersey.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
that
drafted
was
Higgins and Chase that Chase's first year. I was like, give me all the Bengals. Let's go.
You were all over all that.
Yeah.
What about you, Kev? Who's your first QB? You're like, ooh, give me some of that.
So if I'm looking in the top range, like obviously we talk about Allen, Hurts is God. Can they pass the ball? Like, can we get an economic stimulus package like for them to like throw
AJ Brown wants it, that's for sure.
That's for damn sure. Did you hear him in the press conference and the game?
He has the best wide receiver corner matchup this week too, Kev, which blew my mind with Porter, but apparently, right, Joe? Didn't you look it up?
It's an interesting thing where you look at Porter and the guys he shadowed, and it's a pretty reasonable stuff. Like, I read an ESPN article that said, maybe it's a slight downgrade for AJ Brown, and then PFF's metrics, they're not fans of Porter this year. He's like in the 90s in their coverage grade, so they love that matchup for AJ Brown, which is an interesting contrast. Whether
he's going to be the squeakiest wheel for sure.
Yes.
So if you want to play, if you want to go down narrative street, squeaky wheel Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown is going to be pretty fun.
It's my favorite narrative.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts, and he hasn't thrown 30 passes since week 4.
Hasn't completed more than like 20 since like week 3 or 4. I think.
So going back to week 3 against the Saints, or he completed 29 passes in that game. He hasn't completed more than 18 since.
And you want to know why, Joe? Because they're winning, and it's something that I'll give them credit. Is like they're like, look, we got the best O-line in football. We got Joe's New York hero, Saquon Barkley. We got a good defense now.
Good for him.
Let's just run it, man.
And of course, you haven't felt it too much for Hurts because he's stealing 1-yard touchdowns everywhere.
You see the stat? 10 times or 11 times, excuse me. Barkley's been tackled at the 1. He hasn't scored on any of them. I guess Hurts has 10, and then I'm assuming there's a passing touchdown there. But good Lord, think about the season he'd be having if even half of those.
I might actually believe that he was going to win MVP if they'd just given all those to Saquon, because I'd be like, you know what? People are just going to run with this. They're going to be like, he's going to have 200 rushing yards and 30 touchdowns.
He might break the yardage and the touchdown record in the same
Then
season.
I'd be like, you know what? Even I can't fight it too much.
I love Tua this week, man.
I don't.
I know a lot of people.
I know. Look. I'm just gonna say it because I've got pushback just because the Texans and the Dolphins are like two of the slowest teams in terms of like time of possession. That game could be a slog, and that could be like Joe Mixon, like both teams combined for like 40 pass attempts. That's the only reason why I don't like it. But it was nice to see the Dolphins get back to like 2023 Dolphins with how condensed they were.
Well, that's what I was saying. I think this Texans secondary and pass defense is overrated. You look at their schedule; they played a lot of weak passing offenses. They've gotten got by a lot of the good passing offenses that they've played, and I think Tua's cooking right now, man. And when you have like they've also just like screw it early in games. If they can't run it, they're just throwing it, which I love. Like, used to, Joe, what were you talking about last night with Zach Taylor and who's the other one where it's just like, you run it right up the middle on first down every time for 2 yards.
Well, I was talking about Bobby Slowick, the Texans offensive coordinator.
There you go.
He's addicted to those early down runs.
I just think that if you look at it with the addition of Smith to this passing game, you're telling me you get Tyreek, Waddle, Janu, A-Chain, like those are all elite speed guys indoors in a dome. The Texans are a pass funnel because they're just impossible to run on. And I think he's going to get it done. It's a very fair concern what Kevin's saying. And I told you last night, my biggest concern is like a Joe Mixon, 25 for 110, where he's
been doing it all season.
Right.
That's the thing.
And I get that. But I also think that the Dolphins are going to give up some big plays to Nico Collins and the Texans. And I think that's a little higher scoring than most people do. The one that I'm really intrigued because Joe kind of was iffy on it, but Kevin, with the metrics we've seen from the Kansas City Chiefs lately, this pass defense has got real issues. And Jameis Winston is throwing at 41.6 times per game.
That's my guy.
Since he's became the Browns QB. And hell, I'm not only like all over it now in MME, I'm starting to wonder maybe if that's the cast value, because now with Njoku looking like he may not play, we know Tillman's out. It's easier to stack them, right? Because you know so much of the volume is going to go to Moore or Judy. You could play both wide receivers. That's kind of where I've been moving as each day goes on during the week.
That was my play. The one that I'm like hinging a lot of my stuff on for this week is Jameis Winston, just a giga stack with Elijah Moore, Jerry Judy, and Jordan Akins.
Yeah, you can do that. I forgot.
And I don't know. We'll look at his price. I'm sure that's got to be like, I was going to say the low 3,000s, high 2,900. Yeah. So, like the Chiefs are full, like they've averaged 43 pass attempts since Jameis Winston's been the starter. Chiefs are in the bottom half of DVOA, and 24th in EPA per pass attempt as well. So it's not like the Chiefs are world beaters at all. Like the Chiefs have been playing, they've been some of the most fortuitous like just look at what Matthew Wright had to do to clinch the division. Like Nico's already, just sounding off about it. But like the Chiefs can be easily passed on. My only concern, and I brought this up in another discussion earlier today about the Browns, was that you take out Njoku, how much of that can you reasonably expect to go to Judy and Moore when they're already averaging, I think, 9-10 targets a game? Like, you really have to stretch that thin. I think that just gets spread out amongst like almost everybody else. Some will go to Akins, and you got to kind of hope that even at like 2,900, you can still probably get 7 or 8 targets out of Akins. But realistically, I mean, I say this, and obviously Amari Cooper this time last year went off for the game that he had, that 50-point game, then just broke everything. But I think it's tough when you're spreading that out amongst the top guys. Like when you remove one, we've removed Tillman and it was like fine for 3 guys, but when you remove that third guy and now you have the top 2, like what can you reasonably expect?
That's fair. I did hear today too that since week 8, Kansas City is last in pressure rate. So that could explain a lot of the problems they've had over the last month and a half.
Is it just me, or are they just trying to make it
lull us all into a false sense of security?
Right. That's what I felt. Because this was last year where I was like, this Chiefs team, there's no way they're winning the Super Bowl. And then
the Showtime Lakers. They don't care about the regular season.
Or the Warriors.
They're just gearing up for the playoffs.
Like that. I think at the end of the KD type run. I know, Joe, you'd mentioned May. That's intriguing to me as well. I really think there's going to be a ton of points in the Cowboys-Panthers game. So if you want to tell me you want to play either side of that, I like it. I will admit I was 100% all in on like Rodgers and feeling like that was a really good value. The Breece Hall news scares me a little bit, but not much, because I still think Jacksonville, worst pass defense in the NFL.
By far. By far.
A lot.
Doubly better. They're doubly worse than the 31st ranked team, the Carolina Panthers. So,
and condensed. Since Adams has been there, 59% of Aaron Rodgers' passes are going to Adams and Wilson. So that's, again, kind of the same situation with Cleveland, where you get this quarterback who's relatively cheap versus a really bad pass defense, and you can play both of his receivers, and it's not outrageous. So any other QBs you guys want to highlight, and then we'll move on to the running backs, which I think is kind of interesting this week.
I mean, in MME, you're probably right that like Rodgers is worth a gamble, but I maintain that I want nothing to do with this team in any way, shape, or form. I refuse to get burned by them. I pick against them every week in every pool I'm in.
But what if he's 2%?
Working out okay. Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, if the ownership's super down, which it might be because everyone's thinking like I am,
and the court of public perception will take his ownership down.
Jags.
Yeah.
But of course, it's the Jags. That was my Levis reasoning last week.
That's what I'm saying. Well. I wonder if some people are thinking the same thing, and that's going to lead to it. And again, Adams and Wilson both much better versus man. Jags run man at an extremely high rate. So now I know that 60% of the passing players are going to guys that have been real issues for teams that try to play man defense on them. Again, the Titans need to score. That's the issue with a lot of these like QBs and receivers. I like, and maybe why y'all's initial thought of like that golf, Allen, like those type matchups are the ones to go. Is I would be surprised if there's not a good bit of points, right? Like in that Lions-Bills game, even if the Lions do try to just run it and play keep away. Josh Allen proved last week he doesn't need much time or much of anything to get going.
Yeah. And Rodgers is the perfect recipe to fire. He'll be the perfect timing too. So he can go, tout his new Netflix special as well. He can send Doug Peterson over to be undersecretary at the Department of Health.
I will say that my dad's friend has season tickets to the Raiders. And so
my condolences.
So yeah, he has apparently not been to a game this year, but my dad, my brother, and I are all going to meet him for next week's game, which is Jags Raiders, which, we're seeing who's in competition with my Giants for the number 1 pick. But the last 2 years, the game we have gone to has been the first game that an interim head coach has coached. We saw Jeff Saturday and we saw Antonio Pierce. So I'm just saying there's a chance that something so horrific will happen to the Jags this week that Doug Peterson will get fired before the end of the season. And we will get to see another interim head coach against the Raiders next week.
I need you to show up dressed like death if that happens, Joe Matt, with the black robe and everything.
Just do it. You got to full bit that thing.
Any luck with quarterbacks, Joe? Because I might buy you a ticket to fly out to Vegas now before the Falcons Raiders game on Monday. Does it can't transfer?
It wasn't good luck last year. I saw Daniel Jones tear his ACL. So
you might be the Grim Reaper. Good Lord. Yeah, you're down bad.
If there's any coaches you want to see fired next year that are on the Raiders schedule, just let me know. And
Kevin, he is a Slytherin. That's all you need to know, okay?
I mean, maybe that could extend to Jags GM Trent Baalke too. But
God willing, for the sake of Jags fans.
He is deeply in bed with Shad Khan and Tony Khan. So
it's insane.
Baalke ain't going anywhere.
Survive this long.
Yeah. You also know you're down bad when you are $100 cheaper as Will Levis is than Jake Haener. That is just not great, Bob.
Where did Jake Haener play college ball?
Fresno.
That's right.
Okay. Was he pretty good? I know nothing about him.
Good enough, I guess.
I mean, when the bar is Tim Boyle, where you don't have to be good.
What? Christian Hackenberg wasn't good in college, and he went in the third round. So
is he better than Tommy DeVito?
Probably. If he takes sacks at a below 10% rate, he's probably better than Tommy DeVito.
I can't even say too many words bad about Tommy DeVito as a former Syracuse guy, then turned Illinois guy. But the 2 years of Tommy DeVito were years. They were 2 of the years of history for sure.
They're years that you lived through.
Yeah, he's got an orange fetish though. He's going to Syracuse and then Illinois. He's like, what's up with that? We need to discuss that at a later date. There.
Look, we don't fan of orange, but
just that's your color.
We don't color shame. All right.
No, we don't do anything.
Let's go to the backs. Another just blew me away. Kevin Barkley is behind again, one of PFF's biggest offensive line versus defensive line advantages, which I did not expect to see. I would think that Barkley would be low on because of that tent, that red 10 that's the Pittsburgh. And of course, the price tag I think was $8,600.
Scarlet
That
letter.
to me immediately becomes pretty intriguing, knowing that, wait a minute, this is one of the biggest advantages. And I think I talked about this either last week or 2 weeks ago. Barkley first by far in the NFL in untouched yards, where you open up a hole, he's gone. I think he had like almost 400 yards. Henry was second with like 160. So to me, that's intriguing, especially with Pittsburgh. Like, I know they were able to get by without Pickens last week. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that this week versus Philly.
I don't know, but I'm done betting against Saquon Barkley at this point. So, well, I'm not like fully like slapified yet, but yeah, I mean, look, we talked about it last week that peak Christian McCaffrey was like 10K, and the fact that we can get Saquon Barkley at 8,600, I think it's just a veritable bargain for what he's given you.
I mean, that's completely fair. Yeah, like you said, Keith, where the advantage that they had according to PFF's percentages, run blocking was equal to the disadvantage they have pass blocking. And in DVOA, Pittsburgh's 7th against the pass, 14th against the run. So it is, it's a funnel to running the ball, which the Eagles have already basically been doing, where Saquon over the last 4 weeks, I think he's within like 5 total of his rushes versus Hurts pass attempts. So yeah, I mean, if you want to just put in Saquon and Jamar Chase and build, a stars and scrubs lineup, I can't fight anyone on that because
what about Saquon and Derrick Henry versus your Giants, Joe?
What's that?
What about Barkley and Henry versus your Giants?
I mean, I couldn't argue against that either. I mean, again, I will say again, the Giants kicked my ass on DraftKings last week because I put Kamara in a ton of lineups. Because I was like, Dexter Lawrence is out, Bobby Okereke is out. Those are our 2 best guys at the key positions for stopping the run. And then we had like the best run stopping game of our entire season. So there's always the chance something weird like that happens again. But more likely, my biggest concern with Derrick Henry is he playing in the fourth quarter? Like, is he getting 20 carries or does he have 12 for 86?
Week, right? You said Justice Hill, and I went back and looked, Joe, the 3 worst defenses that he's played against this year. No surprise, 2 of his 3 highest scoring games.
Justice Hill's a guy I have my eye on.
Big and because was he 4,800? I think.
He is 4,800.
And people also do forget it is December.
That's right.
Dude,
that's true.
We were just talking about this, right? Like it's his highest yardage total for a month, his highest yards per carry, and the most touchdowns.
They don't happen to play the Texans this month, do they?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they play on Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Matz, it's a Christmas miracle.
No, of course, the Texans are like the best run defense in the league this year, but I probably am.
Isn't that an island game though? Isn't that an island game?
That is in Houston
by itself.
No, I mean, isn't it like a Saturday game or like a Monday
standalone
game?
Is what I think.
I don't think it's on the main slate.
But I don't care that they're maybe the number 1 defense gets his all of his props lowered because I'm just gonna have to put some money on this.
He'll still be my captain
for old time's sake.
Still be my captain 100%. I'm telling you, it's a Christmas miracle for y'all that don't know. Derrick Henry, seriously, what was it, like a 6-game stretch where he had like over 200 yards and 2.5 touchdowns per game versus the Texans? Joe's been talking about this for years
right now.
About this on our DFS show.
He had 4 at one point, ignoring 2 games where he didn't play in this time span. He had 4 straight games where he ran for 200 yards and multiple touchdowns against the Texans. 4 straight games. One of those games they won 17-10, which tells you a lot about the Titans with Derrick Henry.
And everybody's like, what's his name is the best head coach? Vrabel? He's the best head coach out there with experience. I'm going, is he?
He's the culture guy, which is all in right now because of who's got the best record in the NFL outside of Kansas City. He's
fair.
Defensive Dan Campbell. That's the idea anyway.
Did he go for it on 4th down? I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
What
probably not as much because Ryan Tannehill was his quarterback, but
So, Kevin, with what I told you about the huge advantage the Lions' offensive line has versus Buffalo, it's the toughest question every week for me because I get it wrong no matter who I pick. Is it the Gibbs or Montgomery week?
I don't have a coin on me. So I would let the coin do the talk. I mean, look, if you want to be as intrepid a DFS gamer as you want to be, playing both. Have some fun. It's Christmas time. Have some fun. Playing both.
Hey.
Nico is with me on that. Look, every time I made a very, a spontaneous take like that, Nico wants to get on the show and talk about it. So I think that's the best sign that I can think of, where, all right, put them both in. That's the old get the little girl. Why not both?
Apologies, guys. I what's funny is I really think it's our cat at the door scratching on it, and it's driving Nico bananas. There's so many backs that I like this week. It's insane. I actually think Jonathan Taylor is a good play. If you're somebody you think the Colts-Broncos game is going to be close, which I do, I think they're going to lean on Taylor a lot, and I think he's a cheap price. And then, again, I'll say it what I said the other night, the 6,200 combination of Rico Dowdle, who's been basically one of the best backs in football the last 2 weeks, and he's facing the Panthers, who are dead last in rushing yards allowed. And then it is Brian Robinson week, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, no Eckler. New Orleans, not a good run defense. They give up the most rushing yards in the league, over 5.2. It's like right at 5.3 per carry to opposing running backs. Robinson, 4.6, yards per attempt this season. And if the game stays close, unlike the Titans game, like say they're not up 30 at the half. I mean, Robinson, scored 24 points last week again, where he had 2 carries in the second half. So I love that. And in that sense, you could sign me up for McNichols. You can sign me up for Rodriguez in MME. You can go a bunch of different ways where if you want to do multiple commanders as well.
What if I told you Chuba Hubbard with every other Raheem Blackshear, I believe, is questionable. I didn't see if he was out or not, but they did sign one running back who has not played like running back at all in his career, Velus Jones. Chuba Hubbard has a chance to get legit 100%.
That was Joe's boy last night.
Yeah, he's number 5 in snap share on the season, and like you said, everyone who theoretically was going to cut into that at all, especially Jonathan Brooks, is now.
Are you serious about Felix Jones? Was that a joke?
No, Velus,
the former receiver.
Yeah,
I'm going. Isn't Felix Jones like in his 40s? How old is Felix Jones? Okay,
he's probably 43.
We've been trying to make Felix Jones happen since 2007. So
where are you at, Britt Flynn? We finally got him on another roster. So
I'll text her and let her know I got a Felix Jones reference in there. But
he's 37 because running backs feel 10 years older than they are.
Like I think it was like Isaiah Crowell is legitimately like 30 years old. Kerryon Johnson. I'm not even kidding. Kerryon Johnson.
I remember his signing day, Kev, for the dog.
Crowell?
He had the little puppy dog. Yeah, he had the little puppy dog on the.
He was the number one recruit in the country when he signed.
Oh, it was a big deal when we got him, like really big.
Yeah, and then he end up at like West Alabama or something like that.
Yeah, it didn't work out well.
Some of those, but what was I gonna say? Oh, I had something, but
play Chuba.
Yeah, pretty much. Just play. I mean, you got to play Chuba at this point. I mean, yeah, it's Dallas. I mean, who else is honestly going to get carries? Like Blackshear got hurt, I believe, in special teams last week, and then obviously Brooks got hurt, so Hubbard had to. We know he can do it. Granted, it might not be like the greatest, but Chuba Hubbard's been like so efficient this entire season. Like he's been right up there with like Saquon Barkley and dare I even say Josh Jacobs, who I've railed upon week after week after week. If he were on the main slate, I would be touting him because Green Bay, like the Eagles, love to just run the ball and don't care about passing the ball at all. But yeah, I think Chuba Hubbard is like one of the last men standing with some, it's like Chuba and Thielen. If you're gonna feel good about anybody, and we'll talk about him because I like him.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the Hubbard play. Do we transition to like how high are you guys on Rachaad White? If Bucky is, I mean, it looks like right now it's murky at best, right. And the Chargers actually do give up receptions to running backs. One of the few things that they do. He's to me interesting. Again, your Justice Hill play, but I just have a hard time dipping down. Like, again, Stevenson, I think, and Bigsby would maybe be the two guys you could talk me into playing, but I just would Dottle, Robinson, and again, Hubbard, to you guys' points, all, 65 or 6,700 or lower? Like, I'm not going to go dumpster diving at back. Like, I would rather try to find value at tight end or quarterback or whatever and just play like, 3 of those guys or play 2 of those guys and then throw in a Henry or something.
Yeah, I'm with you where, again, I love the Chuba play. Brian Robinson's playing the one defense where by DVOA it's more efficient to run the ball against the Saints than it is to pass. Dowdle's against, the 32nd ranked team against running backs. So if you could honestly play both backs in that game, I wouldn't hate it. But
you got to hope they're like that game is they're double parked and they want to get out by 3:15 Eastern.
Well, they're both involved in the passing game too. Where like if it's a high scoring game, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna be getting it both ways.
The clock is forever ticking. Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think I'm probably putting 2 guys in right in that range, and then
that feels like a definite sweet spot. Like just looking at value wise, like. Yeah, we can take Saquon Barkley, we could take Henry, but like when you can get that or better at $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 more or less, then like why wouldn't you? And then you can still jam in like the best receiver or top tight end or whoever, really.
Right.
Yep. All right. Well, unless y'all got anything else, and again, like to me, the Washington guys definitely should consider throwing those guys in a lineup if you think Washington's going to roll. What were some of the other games? Obviously, Justice Hill. Any other games you guys see getting out of hand where a back could end up, kind of going ham at the end in the low price range?
Nobody's going to be on them, but I feel like I have to wince when I say Javonte Williams against the Colts at home.
Yeah, that's actually a game I could see. Like I think it's going to be close, but I could see the Broncos just smoking the Colts too.
It's 5,200. Like that's if you need to like save money or like you're playing, a high, a lot of wide receivers and you've like really spent up. Like I don't hate it, but the only thing is that you can't project any workload for like any of these guys in Denver. Like that's why they're so low. That's why he's at 5,200 and then scrolling down to Jaleel is 4,700 and then you're obviously not playing Estime, but that's why they're so low because you can't. It's such a hot hand. Jaleel's had the hot hand, but the Colts are just a sieve as far as giving up rushing yards, and they've given up so many 100-yard games, especially early in the season. To running backs, like they were the defense that you played every running back against. So,
and then again, Justice Hill. Just if you're just going full on, I got to save as much money as possible for something else as the flyer because, he has 3 double-digit games this year, and he has 1 20-point game, and that 20-point game was when they beat the Bills by 25 points, and the game was over early because that could obviously play out this week, and then if that happens. Not impossible that he scores 20 points this week against my Giants, but obviously that's you're banking on a lot of things happening versus like, hey, Chuba Hubbard's going to be out there for 67 out of 68 plays. That's a much easier bet to make, but MME sometimes you want to get weird.
Yeah, if you really want to get weird, this is of course entertainment purposes only with this. Not financial advice. Kamani Vidal outsnapped and got way more routes than Gus Edwards did, 2 less carries, but I think the Chargers want to see a little bit more of Kamani Vidal versus what we know of Gus Edwards. Against Tampa, the next couple weeks aren't great, but at least for this week, I think you could make a case where you could see some volume there from Kamani Vidal. It's not a great play by any means, but that's a guy that I'm like watching for to see if his role is really going to increase or if that's really just a week-to-week thing and Harbaugh gets bored. Because once J.K. Dobbins went down, like all eyes went completely off this running game on the Gus Edwards end and on the Kamani Vidal end, because he was going to be like the next man up in terms of getting like some workload. But I'm still fine, like in on Kamani Vidal as far as like I think Gus Edwards is roasted. Like I don't see why he should be getting carries in the year of our Lord 2024, but I'm not a head coach. I'm not paid.
He's blackmailing Harbaugh. I think that's where we're at this point, because I'm with you. It was pretty bad. Like that, again, that's why it breaks my heart. Falcons lost 17-13 in a game versus, again, Gus Edwards I don't think he got more than 3 yards on any carry. I watched it. And he still got like 14 of them. So it was no bueno. The wide receiver this week is, again, kind of nuts. I'm never going to complain, even with the numbers next to the guys wanting to go with Chase, Nico. The Brown one really shocked me again. Per PFF, supposedly has the best wide receiver corner matchup this week. And I mean, he's a grown-ass man. It's actually not that surprising, but I have a hard time paying for those guys when you can get St. Brown and what we think is going to be a shootout against the Bills defense that plays zone all the time. That's very good news for him. Or right underneath him, Tyreek Hill, who is, touchdown in 4 or 5. The first read target shares back up. I think I saw last week he was 4th among all pass catchers and first read targets. McLaurin, like, again, potential boom play. And then I've said I've liked, both the Jets wide receivers. So as much as, I don't ever want to besmirch Nico, Chase, and Brown, because they're kind of carrying wide receivers this year and living up to, what their draft capital was. I do like the value better of those guys below. And it's kind of crazy that St. Brown, who was so expensive for such a stretch, now he gets a really juicy matchup. And he's, down at 7,600 rank. I know he's had some down weeks, but still.
Yeah, I mean, that top line of Chase and Collins, I think, are like as evergreen as it gets each week, no matter the opponent. You could talk me into AJ Brown. It's still really hard to shake the fact that they just are not passing, but
Right.
the
19
wheel,
times a game. Yeah.
But the squeaky wheel will, as somebody who, regularly strolls down there to the street, that would be the reason why I would take AJ Brown. And he's a grown ass man. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a great play. So is Terry McLaurin.
But would you rather have him or Treylon Burks? Because I've heard a lot of people have been bringing up who won that trade. Are we still on the AJ Brown side of that? A few years
I
later?
think, yeah, there's still 6,000 votes in Broward County, but I think AJ Brown, multiple precincts are reporting he won that trade.
It's one of the few times there's not good people on both sides, Kevin. There's just if you're on the Treylon side, I'm sorry, I can't say that about you. What receiver are you loving this week, Kevin? Like, who's your, especially like kind of maybe in that expensive range?
I mean, it's hard for me to not just see Amon-Ra St. Brown, knowing that game is good. What's it, 54.5 right now? Like the entire slate, as far as like over unders, it's not great. That's like the one game that looks great. And then it's a bunch of like 43, 42, 44, where you're really having to like pick and choose your spots. There's not like a real game environment where you're like, okay, well, I think this can, and I just literally said about Cleveland and the Chiefs, where I think that could be a game that does that. But I don't even know if the Chiefs, I think this is a trap game for the Chiefs. I honestly think they lose this game against the Browns.
Not shock me. Yeah.
That would be, yeah.
Correct me if wrong. If the Bills then beat the Lions, the Bills would have at this moment
number one seed, right?
Yeah, which they need it. Like, I think that would be one of the only ways. I know that obviously Kansas City's gone there and won before, but I think
which is going to suck when the Chargers beat the Bills in the second round. And then Kansas City has to play the Chargers in the AFC
we're forgetting that Buffalo lost last week. So Kansas City.
Oh, that's right, to the Rams.
Yeah, that's right. I'm forgetting that Buffalo has 3 now. So Kansas City could lose this game and still.
God dang it! So can't they just? How do they keep getting away with it, Joe? So Joe, the Panthers I just read are favored for the first time in 2 years. How is that possible in the modern NFL?
To go that long without being favored?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember who was the quarterback the year before Bryce Young.
Wasn't it Dalton?
Was it just Dalton? He was just hanging out there, just slaying.
Darnold.
Well, I mean, it started.
It was Darnold, right?
That ended the season, didn't he? Or no, Baker.
Darnold was like
Baker.
A top...
That's right. It was Darnold, then Baker.
Baker got traded to the Rams, and then didn't. I think I'm right though that Dalton ended that season. I want to say.
I think he did. Darnold was like a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and like
didn't he have like 7 rushing touchdowns or something crazy? Like
they started 3-0 with Darnold that one year, and it was like, oh man, they figured it out. And then that was Joe Brady was the OC back then. There, it's like everyone.
How great is it? Carolina had both of those dudes
doing
ran
great
them both off, and now they're both potentially leading teams to playoffs and playing great football.
This is one of those end of movies. Where are they nows? Like
it's like you watch this incredibly depressing movie, and then at the end it like flashes up what happened to everyone afterwards, and it's like only good things.
Or you could say
it's the worst portion of everyone's life.
That or like the end of Can't Hardly Wait, where they go through everybody there in a much happier.
That's my jam, Kev. That's my jam. Can't hardly.
Oh, so that last year here were the 3 starters last year before Bryce.
There we go.
6 games of Baker, 6 games of Darnold, and 5 games of PJ Walker.
It was PJ Walker. That was I would have never got there.
Oh, I forgot about PJ Walker. So did everybody else.
The one guy who didn't get the happy ending from this.
No wonder Bryce struggled so much his rookie year trying to follow the huge steps of PJ Walker. Like that's tough shoes to fill. But he did it well and playing really bad. So Joe, what wide receiver? Where are you going? Because I mean, I think I'm with Kev. Like the St. Brown, the more I think about it, like that's the best value of the expensive guy. And I like Tyreek Hill, but zone. What's another guy that you really like up here?
I mean, I think when you look at the higher priced guys, again, outside of just if you want to just ride Jamar Chase for as long as possible, cool, go for it. I will, thank God he's on one of my fantasy teams. But I think you guys nailed it. Where to me, it's St. Brown in what should be a high scoring game against, like you said, guys spent his whole career carving up zone. No reason for that to stop there. And again, it's, we're not going to Buffalo in that game because that would be a totally different conversation about Jared Goff.
Control environment. Yeah.
Good point.
Where I feel perfectly fine with this team against Buffalo, especially after what just happened last week to Buffalo's defense. Terry McLaurin against the Saints. Again, Saints traded away their best corner a month ago, and
he's finally going to play. He's finally going to play against his old team.
Again, karma scares me away from the Jets guys, but everything you said about them,
Jesus Christ, Joe. This is where we're at now.
Sounds like someone hasn't been on Narrative Street.
That's right. I'm not saying it's rational. I'm just saying it's where I'm at personally.
Well, I know but you're like the most logical person I know, and that's what blows my mind.
Well, nothing logical. That fits perfectly well with Aaron Charles Rodgers.
Where they are.
Look at Adams, like fantasy points, targets, etc. He's 6,900. The last 2 weeks, look at Garrett Wilson's fantasy points, targets, etc. And he's playing a worse defense that runs man like 45% of the time. Adams goes from 24% target rate to 34% versus man. Garrett Wilson goes from, I think it's like 1.1 fantasy points per target to almost 1.9 fantasy points per target.
No, again, I don't disagree with you on the merits of any of this. I'm just not going to do it.
What's going to piss me off is when it doesn't hit, and it's like the Titans last week. I'm going to pie you in the face, Joe. I'm going to come all the way over there and give you a pie for being right.
I mean, I mentioned briefly yesterday, I picked the Jags to win this game because I'm picking against the Jets every single week, and that's just what I'm doing. It's like the Browns when Deshaun was in there. It's like I'm picking against them every week, and most weeks I'll be right.
Yeah, but now you're dragging down Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams with it. Rodgers, that's fine. But how
isn't Rodgers doing enough of that?
Yeah, Rodgers is the problem. And the fact that they fired their defensive genius head coach and the defense immediately went down the toilet.
I mean, I would argue that Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams are actually having good fantasy seasons.
I mean,
among wide receivers.
They haven't been bad. I mean, really, and you look at their record in 1-score games, you're like, you know what? If they just didn't fire Robert Saleh,
7, isn't it?
Would they be like 7-5 right now if Robert Saleh never got fired? If they hadn't just freaked out?
What game did he get? Was it after the Texans game he got fired?
Whatever the 5th game was, they were 2-3 when he got fired.
Okay, so then it was after Buffalo. I think that was week 5. I'm pulling it up.
After Minnesota.
You even you went a little Minnesota there when you said Minnesota. I heard that, Joe.
Here's the thing. Part of this was perception because the 3 teams they lost to were the healthy 49ers, the Broncos by a single point, and then the Vikings on the road by 6. Those 3, well, the Niners aren't going to be in the playoffs because everyone got hurt, and that's what happens every 2 or 3 years to the Niners. The other 2 teams are going to be in the playoffs, but back then, everyone thought Denver sucked, and we didn't really realize that Minnesota was the top, 5 team. And so they're like, this is a disaster. We got to fire Saleh. And then you look at the rest of the season, and you're just like, well, if your defense, which was always great under him, was a little bit better, you're like 7-5 right now, and you're a game back of Denver for the wild card. But Jets fans just gotta pray that Donald Trump sends Woody Johnson to go be the ambassador in France or Lithuania or wherever. That's their best chance for something good to happen.
People in glass houses, okay, like me and you. Right now, I don't know if we need to be talking about shitty run organizations being Giants and Falcons fans.
There are only 2 organizations that I would definitively say I think they are worse run than the Giants, and that is the Raiders and the Jets.
Okay.
So, not the Cowboys?
No. Well, Will McClay is great at drafting.
The Jags?
Just then Jerry Jones screws up the contracts for everyone because he doesn't sign anyone.
Because he doesn't know how to rate on a legal pad.
Yeah, he's like, we gotta wait until the guy's at maximum. He has maximum leverage over us, and then
hold on. Did he go to Arkansas?
He's playing chicken with himself, which is always really fun.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, Joe. I've interrupted you 8 times. You're wide receiver.
Back to actually wide receivers again. Cortland Sutton, you mentioned that I mentioned yesterday. Vele does have the higher target rate when they play zone defense, which the Colts run a ton of zone. But Cortland Sutton's on the field for every single play, and Vele is not. And yeah, like Kevin mentioned, last 6 weeks, he's been up there with anybody where he's had at least 6 receptions for 70 yards in 6 straight games. He's given us the 100-yard bonus 3 different times. He has 3 touchdowns in that time. So Cortland Sutton at 6,600 is one that definitely stands out to me. If you're like me and you're not playing Jets, I think he's the play there. Otherwise, I still think he's right there with those guys. And then I do think T. Higgins having the off week is kind of fluky where, they just decide not to cover Jamar Chase at all. So when you double team Jamar Chase, like most teams do, Jamar Chase still hurts you, but then T. Higgins also crushes you where
makes you pay. Yeah.
But Tennessee, that's probably just not my favorite matchup. There will be other weeks where I'll go back on the T train. So yeah, I think I'm with you.
Called the T train now, Joe?
Apparently.
I like that though.
All aboard.
It came out of my mouth and I was like, this is either the worst or best thing I've ever said. Malik Neighbors, no, I can't do it. Yeah. So yeah, if I'm in this mid-tier, I think it's going to be, if I'm being rational, maybe the Jets guys are right there with Sutton, but for me, it's probably Sutton in this mid 6,000 range. But if we're going
Joe, come on.
You're right where if Njoku's not in there, then Judy does make quite a bit of sense. So is he on the on again, off again thing? Not officially yet, but he's
I love that.
He had 140, then 85, 235, then 64. So maybe this is another 150-yard game.
Kev, what about Brian Thomas Jr. last week, getting 9 of the 11 Jags pass attempts in the second half targets, and he caught 8 of them? Did they finally figure out, look, let's just go down throwing to this dude?
The dude's a dog. Like he is he is the new DK Metcalf, but he might be way more consistent than DK Metcalf.
I think he's a better route runner for sure, don't you?
I mean, well, DK Metcalf was like a lump of coal when he came out, like as far as like how unpolished he was.
He could do like 2 things. He just did them super well.
He could run a 9 route and he could box out.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
Are we just going to do this every 3 years with LSU where it's going to be like, turns out the best quarterback in this draft is an LSU guy, and he was throwing to 2 of the 5 best wide receivers in the NFL?
Pretty much.
Because it's like, it's absurd that they've been able to go from Burrow, Jefferson, Chase, and then they had literally it was like 3 years later you have Daniels, Thomas, Neighbors. And
it's a transfer QB both times.
Oh
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How did they not?
And two, wide receivers that were homegrown, but whew.
Then we'll be doing it in 2 years with Kyle McCord and Trevor Pena and Jackson Meeks and Naronde. No, we won't be doing that. But sorry, that's my hey, look, Syracuse got into a bowl that wasn't like the 2000 Flushes toilet bowl. So I'm happy.
You knocked a team out of the playoffs.
Oh, are the bowls out?
Yeah, they've been out. Where you been?
Man, stoned.
Syracuse, the Holiday Bowl against Wazoo.
Oh, that's like one of my favorite. I still love the traditional bowls. I'm a big fan of them.
You never go to them, but
No, I would never go to. I want to watch them on TV.
No, I meant like the dogs. I mean, last year I guess was an exception, but
trust me, we went to plenty of bowl games in the 40 years I've been on this earth. It's been good though, last couple for sure. Few guys I want to talk about, then we'll move on to the tight ends. Or you guys, again, Elijah Moore at 5K range, love it. But Kevin, I think, alluded to it earlier. My most played guy, Cash, MME, you name it, Adam Thielen. It's a guy I pivoted to last week as the week went on. I mean, we're now at a sample size. If he's played 22 games with Bryce Young, he scored 20 or more points in 12 of them. That's pretty good. He's seen 7 or more targets, and I think it's either 14 or 15 of them. That's pretty good. And the Cowboys, I think they give up the 8th most receptions. I know they're like the 5th most receiving yards to wide receivers. They've been getting cooked by number ones. And I know we think, well, that's just Jamar Chase. No, Terry McLaurin burned them just, 2 weeks earlier. I do think that Thielen is a wonderful play in a game that, again, I think there's going to be a good bit of points in that game.
Yeah, fully agree.
I'm not doubting anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is. Xavier Legette is too off the map as far as expecting anything from
your boy
him.
is back this week, though, Kevin, who I do like him as well as a flyer. Coker.
Who?
Coker.
Yeah.
No?
I'm worried about him getting on the field, honestly, and staying on it. Because I think it's going to be the same thing.
Thielen,
like Coker is, well, I think Thielen stays on in 2 wide receiver sets, and Coker is like, he can play on the outside. Thielen kicks inside, but I don't think Coker stays on the field. That's the one thing where he might be like a 60-65% route guy, whereas Thielen, I don't think he's coming off. I don't think you can take him off. But I look – go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I just said not at this point. Like, who are you going to take him off for?
Exactly. David Moore. I mean, the mixed economy. We didn't talk about Khalil Shakir, who I think is a good play as well if you're playing a lot of the Buffalo Detroit stuff. And then, but even more than Khalil Shakir, and like, God bless me, I can't believe I'm saying this, Amari Cooper.
Yes. Kev, I was there last night. I'm with you.
Like 5,300 for a guy that had 246 air yards. And what is it with all these wide receivers that got traded during the season that are only running 60% routes between DeAndre Hopkins, Amari Cooper, Mike Williams? Like, nobody can run a damn 90% route share to where we feel really good about like putting them in a lineup, because that's pretty much what Amari Cooper did. He ran 62% of the routes last week. And then that was what?
But he saw 14 targets. That's unbelievable.
54% targets per out run, by the way.
Woo!
Like, you don't see that.
No. And to back it up, too, Lions run a ton of man. This is Cooper, who this year, 27.8% target rate. For his career, it's actually like over 30%. And what I really love, Cooper's the big play guy that unfortunately, like, there hasn't been a lot of connections, first and unrealized air yards, all that. Lions, 6th most passing plays of 20-plus yards, 10th most passing plays of 40-plus yards.
It's the one thing they give up. That's the one thing they give up.
And I could see Cooper having one of those like monster days where you look up and he only has 4 or 5 receptions, but it's for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Is he going to do what he did last year? 265 and 3 touchdowns or whatever it was.
Was that versus the Bills? Who was that?
No,
against?
That was against Jacksonville, I want to say. Last year, the 50-point game he had.
Was that
like
that
right
was
before
Flacco,
Christmas.
right?
Yeah, that was Flacco.
Yeah. I was say I couldn't believe Deshaun Watson.
But yeah, 5,300 for that. I mean, I could see where you look at that. It might think it's a blip on the radar, but I think they give him more routes this week. I mean, I know they love, for whatever reason, Mac Hollins, but if you're a team that needs this game as much as like any team needs any game to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs, like this is a Super Bowl. I think this is the Super Bowl, honestly.
Boy, it would be amazing if it is. God, I would love that. I love that. Downs at 5,100, our PPR god is back. Like, that's a great play. Joe, do you want to do the bit you did on why again? Sorry, guys. Oh, QJ and why. I know it's disgusting, but because of the amount of cover 3, this could be the QJ week.
Yeah, you're right that I never feel good about it, but 11th best yards per route run against cover 3, and the Bucs run cover 3 43% of the time, 5th highest in the NFL. So if there's no lad, QJ does become interesting, and then a few other cheaper guys. I mean, if we're talking about Bills wide receivers, the guy who's seen the biggest jump, granted, he's just come back from injury. I don't know what the playing time. Keon Coleman sees the ball a lot more when they face man. He goes from 12% to 26% target share, which only Cooper is higher on target share. And the Lions are also bottom 7 in yards allowed to number 1, number 2, and number 3 wide receivers. Or the Lions are, sorry, not the Bills. So again, if you want to just try and figure out ways to get as many people from this game in your lineups as possible, absolutely do it.
I kind of, you could do an Allen double stack if you're doing like, especially Cooper and Coleman. Like, that's
right.
cheap.
It's not that expensive actually because of the, the nature of it where you're kind of guessing who it'll be that week. But
even still, Shakir and
Cooper. Yeah, not that expensive either.
Right.
The fact that the tight end has not factored into this offense at all has made the wide receiver much more.
My favorite quote that I've heard this year has been about Dalton Kincaid, and we'll talk about him, but that trying to get him a target is like one of those Rube Goldberg machines. Like, they need 4 guys in motion. They need to move this guy over. They move that guy over just to get him a 2-yard catch, like in the flat. I think it was Davis Maddock who said that, but it was the funniest thing I've ever heard.
God bless
a lot of people all over Kincaid. While me and Kev are.
I was one of them.
Brock Bowers this summer. No one to listen.
I got outbid for Kincaid in one of my leagues, and then I was like, "Well, I guess I got to get Brock Bowers," and that's worked.
That worked out well for you.
And then it's like he got hurt or was on a bye, and I was like, "I guess I got in my other league where I got him." And I was like, "I guess I got to pick up Jonnu Smith." And it's just like. Fantastic. But 2 other guys I want to throw out real quick.
Yeah.
My guy Vele, again, target share jumps 6% going against zone. Colts number 1 zone defense, 80% of the time they're running zone. His fantasy points per route run goes from 0.09 to 0.47. So he becomes interesting. And yesterday's, I mentioned that Marvin Harrison's numbers go up against man, which the Patriots run man at the 2nd highest rate. But considering the price point and the fact that if Christian Gonzalez is shadowing, I'm going to assume he's shadowing Marvin Harrison. Michael Wilson's target rate jumps from 13% to 20%. And the Patriots are awful against number 2 wide receivers. They give up 67.5 yards per game, according to FTN. That is dead last in the NFL. So Michael Wilson down there at 4,400 is a play I like a lot.
But am I mistaken? Wasn't he the one that just feasts on on zone? And
I think last year that was true. And then this year
it's changed this year.
Has not been the case, where his target rate goes up, his fantasy points per route run goes up. His yards per route run, not a huge difference, but the fact that you're also then throwing in that the Patriots have been god awful at covering. Whoever's not covered by Christian Gonzalez is usually open. So, and also, if you want to roll the dice, worked out terribly for us last week. The Bengals defense is awful, and they are playing the Titans.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
If you want to do like a Westbrook Akine,
like
maybe the touchdowns come back this week. That's all I'm going to say. The Bengals, I forget the stat. Maybe I have it somewhere, but it's like their third highest wide open rate to outside receivers. So, hey.
I've disassociated myself from that team.
Well, Kev, just go ahead and keep your picture off for a second, because I do want to mention MVS real quick before we move on to the tight ends, who I know is one of your other favorites. Again, I think the Saints are going to be down. Commanders have had issues with particularly big plays. And I just, we can see MVS has surprisingly done more with the Saints than he did with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs making big plays. And that's not an exaggeration, which is just wild.
Weird, but true.
Nobody wants to pump up the Van Jefferson train or the Calvin Austin train.
I'm so scared about that Pittsburgh offense. Which one do you like?
Neither. I'm just they're mentioned all the time. I figure this is like my verbal shit posting.
That's his trap. You see how he does that to me, where he's like, Keith was going to get away without saying anything dumb for 5 minutes. So let me just throw out some bait and see what I can get him.
Jalen McMillan is not the worst play either. Like, if that dude's going to get a market share in Tampa,
that I buy a lot more for sure. The Eagles, that like all those young DBs, that first month was kind of weird. Fangio's defense was new to the team. And then now that thing's a well-oiled machine. Again, one of the reasons you can win the game while throwing 24 passes a game is your defense is playing awesome. And yeah, I want no part of any Steelers wide receiver.
How many passes does Russell Wilson complete? Like over under 15 and a half?
I think it's going to be a rough day for him. I really do.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
What about Marvin Mims? Colts run a lot of zone. I just looked it up. His target rate's nearly identical man versus zone, but the fantasy points per target, 0.53 versus man, 1.97 versus zone this year.
The only thing is they literally toss out anybody to give deep shots to, and he gets he has to capitalize on one of his three.
That's fair.
To get it.
Yeah,
that's my. He has seen a red zone target though in 3 out of the last 4 weeks.
That's fair too.
I do like that. That's a little change.
Like we talk about how Dennis Allen hated Henry Miller. There might be an under the radar Sean Payton hates Marvin Mims narrative.
I think on certain teams he would be I don't know. I mean,
he could be Sterling Shepard on a lot of teams.
Yes, that's a good comparison. Yep,
like early career Sterling Shepard.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, not like this.
Not current. Yeah.
No, definitely not now.
It's a different vibe.
All right, let's go to the tight ends, and then because we want to build some ops, and we'll get out of here. And I love us with what we do. Kev, I can tell that both of you guys are not as high on the Dolphins passing game, but Jonnu Smith, to me, this is perfect example of where people are going to look at that ranking and they're going to forget last 34 targets, 28 receptions, 345 yards, over 23 points per game.
Better hope they get some overtime this game.
And the Texans, I know
he scored all his points in overtime. He had a goose egg.
He did, but I mean, the 3 weeks before he had plenty.
Oh yeah, he was a world beater. Yeah,
and just in the last, I think 5 games, because people again will look at that number. Evan Ingram 7 receptions. Okonkwo caught a 70-yard touchdown versus defense. The Cowboys tight ends combined for 11 catches for 100 yards. Sam Laporta, been a huge disappointment. 66 yards and a touchdown. I actually think this is one of the ways that they're going to attack this defense to move the ball. I think Janu's going to be low on because he's one of the higher priced guys with that scarlet letter, as Kevin likes to call it, next to him, with, the red number. I love Janu this week. Like, absolutely stick it into my veins.
I mean, I just lock button Trey McBride, but God, can we just get the guy a touchdown? Like, if there has been a need for a squeakier wheel this season, like Trey McBride needs to get 3 touchdowns in this game, just so we don't hear on every single fantasy football podcast, Trey McBride touchdown regression. Like, please, if there is some sanity left on this earth, just get Trey McBride.
Anybody saying that? Dude's had 41 targets the last 3 weeks. Okay?
That's what I was going to say. If you just
he's not Cole Kmet. He's not anybody. He's a beast. You don't get 41 fucking targets.
He's an early 3rd rounder next year. Fantasy.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, don't forget he has actually scored a touchdown this season.
Yeah, rushing
on his single carry of the season.
Maybe they should give it to him more often.
Oh, that's a Trey McBride guy. Yeah, trust me, I remember that. Like it was yesterday.
It's like you said, Keith. He had 41 targets the last 3 weeks. If you just told me a guy racked up 300 yards and 41 targets and didn't score a touchdown, I'd be like, that's surprising. The fact that then you can extend it out to the entire rest of the season, and it's still true.
I mean, I hate to say it, there needs to be more blame put on Kyler Murray, because I keep hearing how Marvin Harrison's been a disappointment and how McBride can't get in the end zone. And it's like, at what point do we look at the quarterback throwing them the football?
I mean, that's fair.
Absolutely fair.
I'm not Kyler's a guy where I'm like, I'm not anti-Kyler and I'm really pro-Kyler. He's just kind of like, he's pretty good. And that's the end for me.
2.25 yards per outrun this year. Trey McBride. Only behind George Kittle.
What a beast.
And
what a bad game plan by the Niners last night. It's like, no, we're going to throw it.
What just a bad game.
Yeah.
Like,
you see someone win a bet on no touchdowns being scored. It was like they won $1,600 on a $10 bet.
It was the first time I think I saw in the history of their series that they entered the 4th quarter with neither having scored a touchdown. It's like their 98th meeting or something. Insane.
We're talking about good offenses too, because the Rams were awesome in the 70s, obviously 80s, 90s.
Niners.
Like, we're talking about great teams. Yeah.
Greatest show on turf, early 2000s.
2000s. I mean, I know they were both terrible in like the late aughts, I guess the kids are calling it.
I mean, there was a time where everyone in the NFC West was truly terrible for a couple
except for the Seahawks.
Well, even right before Pete got there, it was like, well, even the team the Quake won. That team was 7-9 and won the division. And then,
oh my God, that's right. Is that
that's one of my favorite NFL playoffs?
Is that the one that who was it? Who was the dumb white guy that he started? It was the first flex Sunday Night Football game to decide the NFC. Chad Hutchinson.
Oh,
he started that game for Seattle.
And that was against Sam Bradford, right? Wasn't that like Rams Seahawks?
I believe so, because I remember that game being on NBC, last game of the season. It was it was like 2010, I want to say. It was for the division.
Yeah.
But yes, Chad Hutchinson started that game.
Sam Bradford, another guy, I think.
Was it? Hold on. Now I got to look it up. Sorry.
It's all right.
I think I might be thinking of the wrong dumb white guy.
All right, so we agree, right, that if Njoku's out, Akins is a great value at 2,900, right? Chiefs
definitely
give up a gazillion. I think it's almost I looked it up this morning. I think it's almost 9 targets per game, over 7 receptions, over 70 yards, and you're getting the guy at 2,900. Like, sign me up. Yeah, here it is. So I'm sorry. It's 6.62 receptions per game and 78 yards per. And then again, I bring up Winston's throwing it 43 freaking times per game since he's taken over. The other tight end in the low price range, I really like Juwan Johnson, who again, check his status, but you got a young quarterback, the backup making a start. That's good for Johnson. He's seen 12 targets the last week with Taysom Hill out. And then I need to ask you guys, should we be all in on Stone Smart, or
that's what I was going to say. Stone Smart is an interesting one to me because, you just talked about Kansas City being awful, and the only other team giving up over 70 yards per game to opposing tight ends is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
My concern, I'm looking at right now to see if they've brought anybody up, because they've had, the Chargers use I don't know what it is about. They use so many blocking. They use Tucker Fisk. They've had Eric Tomlinson on their practice squad. They're likely to call
Greg
him
Roman offense, baby.
Didn't we go through this with Smart last year, if I remember correctly, where he flashed a few times and but he wasn't on the field
because that was when
overall.
Parham was hurt.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the ugly white guy I was talking about, that was Charlie Whitehurst, not Chad.
Oh, Charlie Whitehurst.
Wasn't he touchdown Jesus?
There's a guy I have not thought about him.
I literally have not thought about him since probably the end of that game. But
I was going to say, I just remember the long hair. That's kind of all I remember.
So I apologize to anybody, Chad Hutchinson related, family, etc. But yeah, that's my one worry with Stone Smart, is that they use so many blocking tight ends that it might not get Stone Smart a usable route share to where we can actually get some kind of volume. But if we're taking a tight end in this range, we're just hoping he gets to the end zone.
50. Well, granted, he was playing Kansas City, so again, the Viagra for tight ends. 53 catches for 54 yards last week. So now he gets to play the other team that's giving up 70 plus yards. So I'm interested, especially again if McConkey's out. That's the major target guy in this offense, the one guy that sucks it up. So that opens it up for me. If McConkey plays, then I'd go Akins over Smart. But if McConkey's out, all right.
I did look up Joe too. I'm still down with your boy Daniel Bellinger, 2,800, despite
someone's got to catch
Drew Lock being out, because DeVito week 10, Theo Johnson saw 6 targets. That was the second most on the team, caught 4 passes. And again, Bellinger last week, 5 for 54. The Giants, what was it? I think last week it was 17 or 18 targets went to him and Wan'Dale Robinson. That offensive line has real issues. That means the ball has got to get out quickly.
Sadly, Malik Neighbors can't get open downfield because
exactly
happened before then.
So I really do. I think Bellinger at 2,800 is maybe not so much for him. He's not a bad play, but for cash, I really like that. I don't see many worlds where he doesn't get at least 7-8 points if that game goes the way I expect it to.
Yeah. Looking through some of the other guys, nothing. I mean, Mark Andrews is fine, but he's still not even running a full route share either. Calcaterra, he's getting routes. But of course we harken back to, they don't pass the ball hardly near enough for it to matter. You got to hope he gets into the end zone. And then with that, you have much deeper options to do that.
You like Schoonmaker? I know Ferguson's back, but against a defense that really struggles with tight ends and a guy that seems to, every target he gets a reception. What does he have? The last 3 weeks, 12 targets. He's got 11 receptions.
My only issue is that he went right back down to 26% routes when Ferguson came back. So, I mean, he is only
more of the blocking tight end secondary option.
Right, exactly. He's not in on the main packages. So
I think he's better than Ferguson, which is one of those deals that it kind of baffles me sometimes when a dude seems to be more effective.
Are we a lot of tight end? I feel like.
Well, that's what I thought, was that I thought Schoonmaker was going to be able to kind of make that more of a split, because I think he earned it. Honestly.
I do too. Yeah, he was really good those 2
games. A second round pick that really hasn't gotten a chance?
That's what surprised me, is they spent capital on him. The Steelers tight ends, are we sleeping on them? They're both very reasonably priced. No Pickens. Ball's got to go somewhere if they get down.
I'm sleeping. Okay. Not on them. Sleeping.
If I'm in that low 4K range, high 3, again, I know the Cardinals have been good against tight ends, but Hunter Henry has 26 targets the last 3 weeks.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
And again, if the Cardinals offense shows up, which is always, a question, but I expect at home against the Patriots defense that has not stopped a lot of people. I expect the Cardinals offense to show up, which means, we're seeing 30 plus dropbacks. That means we're seeing 8+ targets for Hunter Henry. So,
I know the guy that I meant to mention, Brenton Strange, 2,500. I know the Jets have been good, but 2,500. Evan Gingram's out. He's proven that he can actually get some points, and that's literally, that's as cheap as you can play a player on DK. It's not a defense, so that's always intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, stranger things have happened.
That.
I see what you did there. All right, let's build some lineups and let's get out of here.
Sounds good. How do we want to start?
Nico, how do you want to start, bro? Let's see what he says. He says, I'm asleep. Screw you guys. Okay.
Fair.
Do we want to roll like the cheap stuff in Buffalo and then see what we can do with that?
I think we definitely want to load up on that Buffalo Detroit for one of them. Don't you think? That's the game we all agree is probably going to be the most. Like, I like going with, like, say, the Allen.
Allen, Shakir, Cooper.
And then maybe run it back with a Gibbs, St. Brown, Montgomery, J-Mo, like, some kind of combination of their, one of their backs and one of their top two pass catchers. And then
now we're back to Sophie's choice, which I narrowly skirted away from when I said just.
I asked you which one was your other one.
So I guess I will answer that. God, I guess
I think Gibbs is the answer for MME. I really do, because he has more of a chance to go ham, right, than Montgomery. Or do we just take the safe points with this lineup? I guess because you said he is 500 cheaper, right?
He's 500 cheaper. That would probably where I go. Was like Montgomery with the touchdown equity too. Yeah. I think I'd still go.
He's had more carries, I think, 4 weeks in a row.
And the thing is, there's no loser in this.
No.
That's the best part.
And then do you want to try to get St. Brown in there, or do you want to go down to J-Mo?
Probably get him in there. We really got to. Let me throw a defense and see what we get in there. We didn't talk about defenses at all. So is there any that were?
We were talking about last night that Cleveland is probably 2,200, which sometimes how Kansas City looks just rolling the dice. Yeah. I kind of like the
Panthers.
I like the Panthers. I like
Panthers is interesting.
Panthers, did you see their sacks the last it's like 3 or 4 weeks? Go look at it. It'll blow your mind.
Too bad the Falcons aren't on the main slate.
Screw you.
No, I'm not even saying
this week. This week that's legitimate. Yeah.
I mean, considering they went like what? How many times they sacked?
Did you see the Jordan Addison touchdown?
Sometimes
I saw 3.
How dare you, Kevin? I took 2 pies to the face, and you're going to give me with that? How dare you?
You know what? I got eliminated on that week before that last week on in Kings Classic, and it's nice that my Kings Classic team with Jordan Addison and Roman Doomsday scored 210 points against Jeff Ratcliffe. That was fun.
Because I think the answer for the Panthers, since we didn't look it up, they have like 16 sacks the last 4 weeks or something. No, it's more than that. Because that's what I was asking Joe. Yeah, so they've gone 4-4-5 the last 3 weeks, 13 sacks the last 3 weeks. I like that. Really do. Even though we did look, Cooper Rush has done a good job of actually not taking sacks for his career.
His career sack rate's under 5%, which is again, that's what you want out of your backup quarterback. Just don't set us back. Just keep the offense on.
I like the Patriots versus the Cardinals, who's 2,400.
I do like that too, actually. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, if you're going cheap, I think those are the 3. I think it's Panthers, Patriots, Browns, where I could see it not blowing up in our face.
So then let's go ahead and do
Akins or cheap tight ends, so we can maybe try to fit guys of value in our.
I kind of like Strange or Bellinger more, just because I think that they're going to be more involved in the pass game than Akins.
I'm going Strange before I go Bellinger personally.
He's $300 cheaper.
I like Akins over both. Okay. I just not.
What's the price difference on Strange?
He's 400 more. Akins
he's min, so he's 25. Strange is.
I'm saying Akins 400 more.
Yeah. I mean, let's put Akins in, and then if we decide we need an extra whatever, then we can.
Yeah, we can always pivot over. So that gives us 5,200, and that would put us at like Chuba, right?
I'd throw Bailey in that flex, and then you can do whatever you want.
65 if you put Chuba in, 39 to where a flex at 39 is
that's where it gets rough.
It's not great. McMillan, yeah. What wasn't there other guys that we liked that were like a little bit cheaper? I thought
Brian Robinson.
You can go
Dowdle Robinson. There's
Dowdle Robinson.
Robinson's my favorite back this week.
Put him in.
So that would get us to Vele, I think, at wide receiver.
At 42.
If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. Boom. Nailed it.
Lawyered. Hold on before you empty that one out. Let me take a picture because if we get rich, we're all going to get rich. All right. Joe, let's let you drive the bus on this one.
Ooh.
We'll have veto power too, kind of like what we do. But let's. I'm serious. I just want to see where are you going there, bro?
This is a Democratic Congress, so we,
Yeah.
Where do
Joe is the Trump of fantasy football, so that's fair.
Well, all right. So I think we still want to circle that Detroit Buffalo game. Let's say it plays out more like last week, where it turns out you can just attack the Bills through the air. Let's go St. Brown. Let's start there.
All right, I like it.
You want to go full Goff with that, or do you want to just get?
That's an interesting question. Quarterback again. Quarterback. I don't have super strong takes this.
I kind of like the Winston more Judy stack a lot.
I like that. I also like
that opens it up a lot.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that because Judy and
or again, you could even do like Judy Akins if you don't want to do more, which I'm okay with. That gives you even more flexibility.
You could do all three if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I don't want to go like I like that, but I would
put a lot on them there.
You know what I'm saying? Then you're saving so much money. Now we can really load up at other positions.
Yeah, so, I think I might like that more than one.
I'll put the Patriots in there again.
Sure.
For savings.
So put Akins in and take more out, and we'll see what we're working with then.
Because there's a decent number of receivers I like in that 5K range.
Well, I mean, we didn't have Thielen.
Or we don't even have to do the 5K range if we decide to go with.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think if we take more out and play Oaklands, we're gonna have a good, I think over 6K already for the rest of our positions. Potentially, what are we at?
6,400.
Yeah.
So I mean that opens us up to get Chuba because he's pretty much right on our.
Although, is that an avenue where you could put in both Gibbs and Montgomery?
Ooh,
because who's going to have all three of those guys?
If you just go fuck it, we're putting 45 on him again, back-to-back weeks.
I put in Taylor. Hold on, because that still leaves us 5,500.
If you do that, I think you then got to go with Bills on the way back.
I was gonna say we got to get
if you're going in with both backs, to me, that means lines up, Bills are just flinging.
Yeah.
Or either we figure out a way to take Winston out and put Allen in, and that's the run back, and go cheaper at wide receiver, and you just take all of what Allen's going to get.
Is there a bring back on KC, though, instead of maybe – because we don't have to do –
Worthy to me is actually an interesting play because the Browns give up a crap ton of big plays.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't me, obviously I would not recommend it. But
I do. I was going to say, after we finished this lineup, I was fucking around while we were doing the podcast trying to build a Josh Allen with Gibbs Montgomery opposite lineup that I built. So I can just run through that after we finish this one.
There you go. If you wanted to not have to do Gibbs and Montgomery, you could still do a Chuba and one of Robinson or Dowdle.
Chuba Robinson. Let's see what's that leave us with?
6,400.
Okay.
To where you could do a bring back in KC and then pretty much whoever you wanted. If you want to do Worthy 5,100. That still leaves you anything you want.
Now we're
because that's literally, I mean, you could still play Gibbs if you really want. You could play Lamb on the other side of Chuba. You could play whoever. Yeah, the world is literally
do the mix and play if you think that the Texans do what you're. Yep,
the grind it out game. It's an interesting.
You could do that, yeah. Or you could go a little bit lower.
3 points.
And if you
want to upgrade the defense.
No, upgrade tight end.
Oh, I got you.
Or upgrade tight end. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, because you could do like I'm just looking through.
I'm gonna do.
I don't even hate Calvin Ridley this week. We didn't even talk about him. Like, I don't.
Well, again, yeah.
The Will Levis scared me off last week.
Yeah,
but Mac Jones. I mean, it just like they're both just like so bad. It's like I love BTJ. Like again, he got 9 of 11 targets last week, but it's like not throwing the fucking ball. And the same thing with the Titans. It's like it's Will because Calvin Ridley, I think by all metrics would be having a great season.
Take
an accurate quarterback,
and let's put in McBride and see what that leaves us at the flex there.
45.
All right. Well, Valdez Scantling, Mike Wilson.
I don't hate him for that kind of thing. Michael Wilson, you were just talking about.
Yeah, I like Mike Wilson.
Or we could do Hunter Henry and double tap tight end.
Just same game, just all in on the tight ends in that game.
Hunter Henry.
That gives us 62. It's a lot to work with there.
Now you can go we got Robinson. You can go Dowdle.
You can go Dowdle,
Shakir to bring back on St. Brown.
That's true. Do we have any Bills in otherwise? We don't. Right? No, then I want a Bill in there. So yeah, I like the Shakir play.
Yak monster, by the way, like second in the league among wide receivers in Yak.
See, I'd actually put Coleman in there for Worthy.
What's the say? 300.
And then if you want to still play Shakir, you can. But I'm saying, like, I kind of like Coleman's been the one that's been having explosive plays for your run back. And then if the Detroit-Buffalo game, say, isn't the monster game we think, they both could still get off where Coleman could just have one big play and get to kind of his 3X number. And St. Brown, again, versus that much zone, I'm pretty confident he's going to get at least 7-8 catches.
Yeah, and then I upgraded
the defense. Touchdown, does he go over 100? Yeah, I like the Panthers.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joe?
I like this.
Do you like Coleman and Shakir there?
That's what I was saying. I would change out Shakir probably without doing that.
Well, yeah, because we still have 6,200, so that could be like Dowdle. That could be.
Let me look and see. What can we do if there's anything that we can do at 49?
See, I just like Coleman so much more for MME because Shakir, like, what's his biggest game? Like, what's Shakir's biggest game?
It's got to be pretty good, right? I mean, maybe for that price point, it's not incredible.
But that's what I'm saying.
I mean, 25 last week.
Yeah. Right.
Granted, we're basically banking on another similar explosive game. But
we're banking on 20 points in a what we hope is a ping pong game between.
And how many times has he scored 20 this year?
I think that's
the only time.
That's my point, as to where like Coleman at least at 4,900, he's had I think 2 games where he's gotten to 20.
Westbrook Akina's got to 20.
No, Joe, don't. We were having a good conversation.
No, not quite. He's gotten to 18 and 19 and a half. Granted, at that price point, that's much more palatable.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's 4 times.
Or we could just again, like I do kind of like Cooper this week as well. But I don't care. I'm down. Like if you're gut Shakir, I don't hate it either, though. I mean, I do think he's going to have
Cooper, and then because that gives us 57.
Yeah.
Kelsey.
Ooh.
Oh, see, I would rather go Janu, but yeah, I'm okay with that.
What
about just looking? Didn't you say, Joe, that this could be the Harrison Jr. week because it's a ton of men for the Pats?
Go Lions, JMO.
That's true.
And just double it up. If we do that,
you gotta hope it's not last week. It's Tim Patrick week.
That's right.
If we do that, though, do we need to take
it's fine their zone
Winston and get to golf and spin down at Judy?
You think about it this way though. What is the safest play in this game? The Lions running backs and Josh Allen. Those are the safest plays that the general public is going to make the play on and pump up ownership. I think the passing game, and not even just Amon-Ra St. Brown, because I think he's going to be playing popular just based on name value, but I think J-Mo is going to be under-owned, comparing a lot of the higher priced options too. Nobody's going to play Tim Patrick. Nobody's going to play.
That's
I
true.
I don't think a lot of people are going to play Keon Coleman, so that gives that a lot of credence as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
I like it. I'm good with
it. Let me roll through the lineup I made that goes all in on the Allen Gibbs Montgomery play.
I'll put that. Yeah,
Joe's gonna make America.
Obviously, Allen Gibbs Montgomery to start it out.
Allen, you said
so. Yeah, so Allen Gibbs Montgomery to start us off. Then I've got Shakir Cooper Vele at wide receiver. Then we go Akins at tight end. Chuba. And Browns D.
Yeah, that's pretty nice too.
So just all in, we're getting our 60 plus points in Buffalo, Detroit, and if that happens, then we just got to hit on a couple things down there.
I am disappointed though, Joe, that you call me the tight end whisperer all the time, and then did you go with Bellinger or Strange, who's cheaper than Atkins? Any of those? Fuck no.
Well, the point is, you could do whatever you want there because we named.
I will, Joe. Don't you worry, bro. I will.
I was doing the double Browns.
Who was the guy for the Colts? I forget. Who was that? Remember that he caught like 2 touchdowns?
I remember it happening.
We were just like,
who the guy was.
You got to be kidding me. He played for the Eagles. Didn't he? Wasn't he involved in the Philly special?
Trey Burton.
You know what?
Yes, Trey. I think it was Trey Burton, right? Wasn't it, Joe?
It was.
He was a Colt.
It was Trey Burton. Yeah.
Man, good times. Back in the early days of the DFS show, me and Joe used to yell at each other for talking each other out of each other's plays, and kind of
whichever one we talked each other out of. That was the play to make. That was
that was back when I was really sensitive though about how dare you, Joe, say that. Give me facts against my feelings about this player.
Yeah, weeks 10 and 11 that year, he scored touchdowns in back-to-back games. So I think that's like the 2 times you maybe hit him up.
I think I said something like lightning will strike twice, and you're looking at me like, Keith, dude, 1 touchdown in 4 years. Are you sure? It's like, oh yeah, I'm all.
That was his last season in the NFL.
I got all the juice out of him I could, Joe. Well, this has been fun. I always enjoy hanging out with these guys. Kev, you want to promote? Because you got a lot of good written content and stuff out there that people should read. I know I read it every week. Why don't you go ahead and plug that before we get out of here?
Yeah, my Rotoballer article covers every single player that ran a route, got a target, earned a snap. Almost 10,000 words every single week. Sad the season's over, but happy that it happened. We're already getting into week 16, 17, 18 next, to close out the season, but always my pinned on Blue Sky if you were there at K Tompkins II. But yeah, a lot of fun to write every week, and for the first time in a while, I'm not totally gassed on content. So give me another 10 weeks, I'm good.
Well, me and Joe will take all the credit for that. We relieve you of so much stress doing a show on Friday with us, and so that makes a lot of sense. But we really have you've been a wonderful addition to this show, and I'm excited to do it through the playoffs and hopefully continue doing it moving forward. I hope in 10 years people are going, God damn, these guys are still together talking about that's what is wrong. But Joseph, any TV shows or movies you want to hit before we get out here? You've seen that's really good. Shrinking season 2 was phenomenal. If you're not watching that show, I can't.
I'm still catching up on Shrinking, but
so good, dude.
Love Shrinking. I'm definitely intrigued by the Agency with Michael Fassbender as a CIA agent who just came back from 6 years undercover. So that one's fun. Got Jeffrey Wright, Richard Gere in a TV show. So for all the other people our age or older, Richard Gere on a TV show sounds strange. But...
Syracuse native, Richard Gere.
There we go. Look at that.
Did he go to Syracuse or just from the area?
He's from the area. I'm pretty sure he's from the area. I know like where his house is. Like I can picture it right now. Yeah. Like, and I know where like
hey, Richard Gere, if you're watching this, lock your doors, bro.
I was gonna say, don't advertise that you're gonna go watch a Monday Night Football game or anything.
Oh, there's a gate. Don't worry. So that's not happening.
Anything else, Joe? Movies you've seen? Come on, man. What We Do in the Shadows is ending next week. I'm extremely depressed about that. I love that show.
One of the funniest shows of the last 10 years.
Laszlo.
Dude, it's just how we talk in Tucson, Arizona, man. He nailed it. So.
All right. Well, this was fun. Again, Sunday morning, Fantasy and Frames, start sit questions. If you missed it, I was like Tom Hanks in Castaway last Sunday, all by myself for an hour and a half. Jorge kept texting me going, "Thank you so much." I mean, there was questions, so it's not like I'm
still. That's rough.
Shit. This is my dream.
Sounds rough to me. I guess
he just being able to talk and nobody.
I was gonna say that actually is pretty natural for you.
Yeah, like, this is the greatest thing. That's what I kept telling Jorge. I was like, "This is the greatest thing in my life." What are you talking about?
Do I need you?
I was worried when there wasn't questions, at the beginning, because I was like, "Oh my God, what am I going to talk about?" But once the questions started coming in, it was a lot of fun. But we'll all be there this week, the normal crew. Be sure to check that out. My DFS article Fantasy 6-pack is out, the one for Fantasy and Frames. I'm literally going to hopefully get it submitted here in the next 30, 45 minutes. I'm sure Jorge will have that up in the morning. But and Kevin, exciting stuff that the Waiver Wire show, we just keep on evolving and moving on. We'll be doing some superlative shows and stuff here in 2 weeks. And then we're going to evolve right into a playoff best ball, right? Is that where you draft, but you're trying to obviously get players that both will get skill and then also get so far in the playoffs because you're trying to predict? Is that the way that works? I've never done it before.
Well, for the FFPC playoff challenge, it's you have 12 spots. Obviously, there's 14 playoff teams, so you're already eliminating 2 teams. So you're just you can only pick one player from one team. So you take Travis Kelce, you can't take Mahomes. If you get Josh Allen, you can't take, James Cook or anything like that. But it's like the strategy of what teams are you leaving out? When are you, what position are you using the guy that has the first round bye? Like,
is it still a draft, or do you just literally
that's
however you want? Okay,
you can select because it's 1 quarterback. I believe it's 2 running backs, 4 wide, 4 flex.
Ooh, 1 QB. So that's probably the most important position to get right?
I think. Hold on, I got to look at it.
Damn, yeah.
Because I gotta give me 1 second.
Because I've done something like this for ESPN with buddies, but I love this kind of stuff because, like what Kevin's talking about is you're going to be benefited for obviously getting more games of the playoffs, right? Because the more players you have left, just, the more opportunities you have to score points. But it also doesn't mean that if, say, Lamar goes out and plays 1 or 2 playoff games and scores 40 points in both of them and then is done, that was probably still a pretty good play, So, like, there is a lot of strategy and stuff into it.
Yeah, it's all right. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 4 flexes, a kicker, and a defense. So that's 12.
Super flex or just regular flex? Regular flex.
Regular flex. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's tight end premium as well, too. So
I can't wait for us to argue over those on the show because it's going to be when Stacy's trying to get us to take Sam Laporta. In every one of these things like she did to start the season. We're going to be like, no, Stacy, we're taking the sun god. Well, if he goes to the
Super Bowl.
No, we're taking the sun god if we're doing that. Or David Montgomery or I'm taking another piece. No offense to that Rams
Well, the fun part about that thing is trying to project ownership because
I didn't think about that.
Like a couple back in on Laporta.
Well, a couple of years ago, remember when Cooper Kupp went off, he was 93% rostered. And I think the top 400 teams all had Cooper Kupp. There are obviously guys you have to have in every roster.
So it was like the Saquon Barkley best ball this year, right? Like we're 60% of the teams or whatever that advanced had Saquon
Barkley is going to be he's going to be the most rostered guy, I think. Well, maybe not because Kelsey as well. Because you think about the Chiefs, so with Mahomes doesn't feel as great. Josh Allen will probably be the most rostered Bill. That part
of last year, he was playing possum, and then once the playoffs came on, it was like, oh, there's the Kelsey I remember.
Yeah, and Fantasy Mojo does a lot of the ownership percentage with that too. So I can be able to pull that up, and you can kind of prognosticate what people are going to do. But yeah, that's the game within the game, that makes that particular playoff challenge a lot of fun. Is kind of going through that aspect of it too.
I honestly mean this. I can't wait on Tuesday to ask you a million questions about this, because this is the kind of stuff I love. And then when somebody who is as smart as you and has a lot of experience in doing it, I'm just fascinated. I want to hear every kind of strategy there is. And that's the way I am. I want to play, chess, not checkers. That's just the way I am. So, but again, guys, really enjoyed it. I guess we'll see you, as Michael Scott says, as he shoots the shot over his head without looking on the flippity flop. See you later.